Welcome to the Marvin's Room podcast thing. I, I don't typically, I don't know, the intros are normally just chaotic.
Gotcha.
But I'm here in the Eugene V Debs Memorial Home, and it's great to be here. I am here with
Allison Dirk. I work here. Do you want me to say what I do?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
yeah.
so I am officially the director of the Eugene V Debs Museum.
Nice.
Glorified tour guide is really what I like to call it, though.
All right, cool. Yeah, so for those who may not be listening from the area, having grown up in Terre Haute, I've always known about this place. But for those who don't know, how about just a quick rundown of Eugene Debs and kind of what you do here at the house?
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me to zoom out at any point because I get lost in the granular details sometimes. So just let me know if I'm too
I got you. You're good.
Yeah, sounds good. So first of all, Gene Debs, one of the most important Hoosiers who I think ever lived, but most of us don't get to learn about him in school. I am from a Union family in Northeast Indiana. And I didn't know the name until I walked by the house here as a student at ISU. And the house is on the campus of Indiana State University.
Yep.
We're not technically owned by ISU. We're an independent nonprofit. And there's pros and cons to that, which I'm happy to dig into if we want to put a pin in how we work with ISU.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that if you want.
Yeah.
But Gene Debs, I often say that I think it's tough to give him a proper elevator pitch because he lived a long, very dynamic life, was part of so many causes and movements. I don't want to leave anything out, and I want to do justice to it all. You can't in just a few sentences, but I try to at least organize my thoughts in the house around four big topics of labor, socialism, the war and peace question, and the prison question. And I guess just to maybe give a sentence on each bullet point there, Debs was one of the most important labor organizers in this country's history, led what was at the time its biggest union, the American Railway Union, and then led one of the biggest strikes in this country's history too, the Pullman Strike of 1894, which ended up with workers shot and killed by our own army. Debs and all the union officers went to jail for months for leading that strike. Pullman workers had to beg for their jobs back, and we get Labor Day. So basically, Debs is now thinking, up until this point, he couldn't stand the socialists, and I would love to dig into his political or intellectual development too. But
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, anytime. And Debs didn't come out of jail a socialist after that strike, but within a few years did embrace socialism. He decided that both Republicans and Democrats were in the pockets of the absolute richest people in the country, our bosses, the employing class, capital, and not looking at for working people in a meaningful way. So that's why he co-founded the Socialist Party over in Indianapolis, actually. So the Socialist Party is a Hoosier, let's just say that, and ran for president 5 times as a socialist candidate, 1900 up until 1920. The last time he ran was from the most unique campaign headquarters, and that was a prison cell in Atlanta, after Debs had illegally spoken out against World War I. Basically, and we'll dig into it if you want, but we had a bunch of laws that meant you couldn't criticize the war effort or the government, and Debs did both and got a 10-year sentence for it. Yeah, and so he's a real one. Got almost 1 million votes from his prison cell in 1920, running as convict number 9653, and then spent his last years after his release from prison digging into this prison question, and eventually a whole book is published after his death all about his firsthand experiences, a political and economic analysis of prisons as institutions that Debs said were for the poor, a rule to which there are very few exceptions. And then Debs outlined a pretty sophisticated abolitionist argument, basically saying that we should be trying to build a world that wouldn't just reform prisons but make them unnecessary in the first place by addressing the root social and economic causes of crime before it happens, instead of punishing it individually after the fact, in a way that Debs thought drives a lot more crime in the long run. So basically, I don't hesitate to call Debs a prison abolitionist, and I hope connect him to thinkers like Angela Davis and Ruth Wilson Gilmore, or any social movement of the last few years too. So like I said, the 4 big topics: labor, socialism, war and peace, and the prison question. And this was that guy's house, my gosh. So we're in an 1890 Victorian house, and it kind of sticks out on campus today. It's the only house on the block. And it used to be part of a neighborhood of very similar homes. If you're local to Terre Haute, you'll know Farrington's Grove and Collett Park.
Yep.
This block of 8th would have looked a lot like parts of that neighborhood.
Okay.
Similar stature, style, whatever.
Yeah.
And ISU, long story short, has raised all the rest of them to make room for the parking lots that we know and love today, and even some university buildings that are now long gone too. You remember the towers? We were both in school then, right? Oh my gosh.
It was when they were tearing them down. I remember I just gotten out of class. I was working at the writing center at the time in the library.
Yeah, with Katie. Yeah.
And I was just having a quick snack, and I just watched them tear down the towers, just watching the wrecking ball go.
It's wild, yeah. Can I jump on that for a second too?
Go for it.
This is the thing. I would just talk. But anyway,
that's what this is for.
It's all so much fun.
Doing stand up. I talk all the time, so this is my way of being able to listen to other people. So and also just me and my friends just being complete gremlins.
I love it. No, it's great.
This is me trying to grow up the podcast in a way.
I love
so
it.
you're helping me take that first step towards pseudo-intellectualism and not just drinking tequila and yelling at my best friend about Spider-Man for 25 minutes.
That's just as good. I mean, Gene was a big whiskey drinker. I don't have any in the house right now, but I don't want to get too serious basically either.
Yeah, okay,
but it's all good. But I guess just a thing about the towers next door. So if you can picture the Pixar movie Up for our listeners right now, with Mr. Fredrickson's house in between the skyscrapers at the beginning, before the balloons come out. But that's kind of what this house looked like for a hot minute.
I can see that actually.
Yeah,
it's a great way to describe it.
And there's photos from the south end where it looks like the house is in between these towers. So I guess I just want to fast forward from Gene and Kate to the 60s when I think the buildings are 60s era. But after Gene and Kate's deaths, no, I'm going to go back even further. 1890 house, and then I'll get up to the towers.
Great.
1890 house. Gene Debs was born and raised in Terre Haute. This is a typical Queen Anne Victorian 2.5 stories. But I plead with our guests to not worry about stepping back in time. This is not a time machine or a capsule. I am not asking anybody to pretend it's 1890 or 1920 as much as think about why Debs still matters today in some way.
Yeah.
And we can talk all about that too. But after Gene and Kate's deaths, because they stay here until their deaths in 26 and 36, then this is a family home for a history professor at what's now ISU Teachers College. Then through the 50s, this is home to Theta Chi fraternity at ISU. So Theta Chi is down on Oak Street, a few blocks south of here now.
Yep.
I have not partied there. I'm not going to guess how preservation-minded the guys were, but it's still standing here. So I want to give him some credit. And, they bought it from their history professor at ISU. So maybe he passed down some knowledge about why this house mattered. Yeah. After Theta Chi is really when it gets dicey. A landlord bought the house and cut it up into apartments to rent out to students. And maybe you've lived in houses like that. I don't know.
Well, I've definitely had friends who have.
Yeah, visited too, right? Dropping the ceilings, changing the floor plan, painting the woodwork that thankfully is all still here. And in an era, early 60s, ISU grows the campus. It used to be a few blocks southwest of here, I guess.
Yeah.
But by the 60s, urban renewal, they end up buying up and tearing down the other houses on the block. And that probably would have been the fate of this house too. Honestly, McCarthyism wasn't over in the early 60s in Terre Haute. So these are not the cool 60s yet. ISU was not interested. They hoped that a nonprofit would move it away from campus so they wouldn't even have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, that wasn't the case either. There were historians and other scholars at ISU, folks involved in the labor movement here and around the country, writers, artists, activists, including socialists, who came together to form the Debs Foundation for the sake of preserving the house. And they did it, bought the house that year, opened the museum a few years later after a huge restoration project that was largely funded by organized labor. We opened up 65, then were designated a National Historic Landmark in 1966. I have to pause again because there is a train in the background once again, and one of our many local amenities.
Most people listening to this are going to be from Terre Haute, so they're no strangers to that. Anybody outside of it, the thing. See, this is where I'll talk because I don't care. The train. This is just me being like, yeah, dude, most of the time. So this is just what you got to get used to in Terre Haute, because we're right by shout out Treehouse. We're right by the Treehouse, formerly 7th and Elm, and we've done comedy shows there quite a bit, and have had to fully stop because we were doing a show outside, and the train tracks are right there, so we just
You just have to
sit there
stop
just
and
be like,
wait.
all right,
Yeah.
we're just gonna be very patient.
7th and Elm was one of my spots too back in the day. Like I think I might have been in once since it was Treehouse,
Yeah.
so I'll have to go back for a show.
It's pretty cool.
But
Food's definitely pretty good too.
Max
is doing a great job with
Do
it.
they still have the same potato soup as before?
I don't know.
Okay, I gotta find
I've
out.
not gotten the potato soup.
They had
but-
like killer potato soup. It was like straight up heavy cream. I feel like,
Ooh, I'll
but
have to check it out.
it's so good.
But
Sorry, I'll go to another tangent on that
no,
too.
you're good, yeah.
Because the
Go
marching
for it.
band, because Katie and I both did marching band.
Yep, and that's Katie Runge,
Yeah,
who
sorry.
worked with me at the ISU Writing Center.
Yeah.
Good buddy of mine from the days of old.
We love Katie.
Yeah, we
Katie
love
was
Katie.
also my roommate for 2 years in college
Cool.
too. So like
Nice.
it's just worlds collide here.
Yeah.
But we were both in the marching band, and the practice field for the band is also butting up against the tracks. So
Yes, it is.
we would literally, again, also same as you, have
Yeah.
to just stop rehearsal because you could not hear or think straight for a second. And then I think my senior year, one band member took a tally of every time a train went by during a rehearsal over the course of the season, and then we did like a guess the closest thing at the end of the year, and I don't remember what they won, like a certificate or something,
Yeah.
but I don't remember what it was,
That's
but it
fun.
was, I think, at least 3 digits. I'm not 100% on all that. Anyway, that's the trains. I mean, Terre Haute's railroad town then and now, but the house, early 60s opens up, blah, blah, blah. Then 66, we're designated a National Historic Landmark, which I want to give a minute on too, because we're still the only National Historic Landmark in Terre Haute, and we were one of the first in the entire country to get that level of a recognition.
Very cool.
The NHL program from the Department of Interior was introduced that year. We were in the inaugural class for the state and the country, and it is still our highest designation. It helps ensure our continued existence. Now, this has been a house museum longer than the Debs has lived here, thanks to a collective effort and that designation as an NHL. And that kind of ties it into the towers next door. So I guess to bring it back to where we were, I love like the circles we go through. But ISU had built these 2, I think you could call them brutalist style, like concrete, like 12 or 13 story buildings, right? And they're in the lot that is to the north of the house. So they weren't like butting up on it adjacent, but they're like within a few dozen yards, I guess.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely in the shadow of the towers.
Yeah.
It's very Lord of the Rings.
It was so bizarre. And I
very
think they were like dorms at one point. They
Yeah.
were the College of Business and Education for a while. Then they sat vacant and were kind of offices for a while. And then when we're students, they come down. But because there was a National Historic Landmark next door to the towers, they couldn't do a big implosion demolition. Instead, they had to take them down a floor at a time with a wrecking ball you mentioned. And this is also when Miley Cyrus' Wrecking Ball was on the radio, back when we had radios.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember one time driving into class, parking around here, and hearing that on the radio at the same time that I saw the wrecking ball going on one of the floors over there. It was just like the zeitgeist. It was so funny. And this was right before I started working here, when those towers came down. But I was told that they had to take everything off of the walls during the demo so that the seismic effects would not like ruin our picture frames and like shatter stuff if it fell on the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got to miss that part. But also kind of goes to show like how important that kind of protection or status can be. Because otherwise, if we didn't have that, I mean, who knows what kind of effects could have happened if they did a full style demolition or whatever. So,
for sure.
So yeah, worked out well. So that's kind of the brief story of the house. And then
Yeah.
our next chapter is our $1 million restoration, which I got to plug as much as I can.
Oh, definitely.
I'm like not the best fundraiser. I'm trying to get better, but we're working on a $1 million building project inside and out. Everything on the exterior, windows, roof, siding, doors, you name it. A lot of interior work too. Our whole basement is actually a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm going to have an office down there someday.
Oh, cool.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
And we'll do some new, like, we have to rewire parts of the house, and hopefully that means some new wallpaper while we're at it, because most of the wallpaper in here is like 60s and not historic. So I'm really excited to work on our interiors at that point too. But good reason to support our work long term, because it is going to take every single one of us to pull off that building project. So, so yeah, that's kind of the house and Eugene Debs. And then as far as like what I do here is a little bit of everything. Our paid staff is made up of me and the cleaner. So I do everything from change light bulbs to do the tours to put up the tree. Sometimes I do some light landscaping outside too. Train and manage our volunteers and do a little bit of fundraising work for the foundation at this point too. There's a lot of that. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but it's kind of a catch-all position. And at a lot of museums, it's unpaid volunteers who do the tours, and the director never even might interact with the public that often. But I like to kind of flip that on its head, because I think our interpretation is some of the most important work in this museum. So I don't mind spending the time on the tours, because it's also really enriching for me too. So
and you also run one of the most unhinged Twitter accounts I think I've seen in a long time, and it brings me joy every single day.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Levi. It means a lot. I'm always worried that like a board member is gonna see it and get offended or something. Like, we have a cool board, don't get me wrong.
I haven't seen you do anything that would be wholly offensive.
I hope so.
But it's just so, and when I say unhinged, I'm like, it's not like me unhinged with like, silly jokes or whatever. Like, it's when you see a Twitter account for an organization such as this, you think it's going to be very like sterile and very like, come donate, thanks. And you're just like out here just going for it. And
like blasting our haters too.
It's the best, putting people on just completely in their place, and I love it so much. Like that is honestly like what made me even want to ask you to do this, because like I had taken tours here, and I with the ISU admissions office back in the day when I was there, which has been more years ago than.
So you're doing something else, and what are you doing now?
I'm in the kinesiology rec and sport department.
Oh, cool!
So I'm in
nice.
the College of Health and Human Services.
Awesome, the new building.
Yeah.
By the birthplace marker.
Yes,
cool,
yes.
Even better. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just give the listeners a little bit of the Levi side of this equation. So, I grew up in Terre Haute. I'm born and raised. I'm a native Terre Haute South, Brave, and the whole 9 yards, and ISU Sycamore. So, it's cool hearing that you grew up in a labor union family, but you didn't really hear about Eugene Debs. I grew up also in a labor union family, and I feel like Debs is all I ever heard about.
Nice. Good for you.
Labor Day here, and taking AP US History at Terre Haute South.
You had that one guy, right?
Mr. Engel.
That's right. I hear a lot about him because he does teach this.
Because he also looks a lot like Eugene Debs.
Love it.
So, like, when my friends and I first started going to ISU, you have a bust here, and there's also one on the third floor, I believe, of the Cunningham Memorial Library.
Right.
And so every time I would see it, I would just like picture my history teacher.
Mr. Engel, right there.
He had all these little like witticisms. He'd be like, "Oh, say what you mean and mean what you say," and he'd be like, "Are we copacetic?" Or like he would have those like mannerisms that he had while we were teaching. So I would see anytime I see a picture of Eugene Debs, I hear my history teacher. So it's just been really cool, and it's weird to think about how not everybody has that like labor union upbringing, and because it's uncles and cousins have always been plumbers and steam fitters.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
was like which one? So yeah, that's a good one
plumbers
too.
And steam fitters. I've had family members in other parts. My dad has worked for the state penitentiary for years and years, and had a union up until a certain governor that I'm not a huge fan of, who now is the president of Purdue.
We should talk about that too.
Yeah, we should.
The chancellor thing.
Yeah.
It's so sorry because it connects sort of to like what we do here now too.
So it's also just the rich history that we have here in Terre Haute that not a lot of people really, because it's so easy to get awash in the like, oh, Terre Haute sucks and the town stinks, there's nothing to do, which thankfully in the last few years I feel like we've started to work out of that, especially with the 12 points revitalization and people, a lot of it is the people that are our age are now the people in charge, and we actually care.
Right.
And it's cool to that's why I try to do with like comedy and try to collab as much as possible, especially with 12 points, just because I love what they're doing over there. And it's one of those things where it's like, I guess I take it for granted in a way, because growing up in school, like we talked about the Paul Dresser house, and we talked about Eugene Debs house and all the historical sites, and going to the Terre Haute History Museum, which I still haven't been to since they have remodeled it. So I want to check it out. I want to go just the Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
portion.
see the shop, and like the fact that the building is an overalls factory, like it's so charming, honestly.
And still get the crap scared out of me by Stiffy Green. I remember like seeing him when I was like 8 years old when we took the tour.
Can we run on that for a second, by the way?
Absolutely.
Because there's a family connection. Did we talk about this ever before?
I don't think so.
So Stiffy Green, you tell the Stiffy Green legend, and then I'll tell the Debs connection.
Okay. So for those who don't know, Stiffy Green, not my porn stage name. It's I promise you. Also, yeah, you can cuss on this. This is not like a family friendly
Fuck yeah.
thing. It's just whatever you want to do. I don't want to make you feel unprofessional, but at the same time, this podcast is not professional
for
at all.
funsies.
It's literally again, for those who know the background of Marvin's Room podcast, it started off in quarantine with me and the comedians all drinking in our own respective homes and telling jokes and just being stupid with each other. So that's kind of where I'm trying to blend the worlds of bringing a little bit more intellect into it, but we're still going to be stupid. It's
Love
fine.
it.
Feel
Here
free to
for
be
it.
as stupid as you want.
Great.
Because you've already been so smart so far. So I
and a little stupid, I hope.
I already feel, so it's you're picking it up. You're getting the tone. I'm very proud of you.
Love it.
And so Stiffy Green. I'm probably gonna mess this up because it's been a hot.
I want a local to tell the story though, because this is not the. I grew up with my own myths and legends from up at home. I want to hear from a local what you got.
So from the way that it's always been told to me, there was this dude. He had a dog. Name was Stiffy Green. Dog went with him everywhere he went. It was his little buddy, loyal companion. He was like a bulldog or something, I think, if I remember right.
Yep.
And so homeboy dies. He just bites it, right? Not the dog, but like he passes away. And the dog was still just like that dedicated to him that this is where I've heard two different things. I've heard he was buried in a graveyard and he was in a tomb. And either way, the legend leads to essentially even when like the dog died, he still watched over the grave, and like some teenagers went and they were like knocking over gravestones, doing whatever, and they said they saw these two just like beady, like emerald green eyes, and they heard a dog barking and it chased them out of the cemetery. And Stiffy Green, like his ghost like wanders the area like to this day, protecting his master. And the museum has a replica like of what would have been like a taxidermied Stiffy Green.
Yes.
I'm 8 years old. I'm scared of everything at this point. Like, I mean, I still am. I'm just very good at hiding it now. But, like, and I remember looking at him, and I looked at the tour guide, I was like, did they actually, like, because I thought they, like, taxidermied him. I thought that was, like, the dog.
The dog.
And I was like, is that the real dog? And they were just like, we don't know. He came with the building. And I was like, what the fuck? And I swore, he blinked at me. I'm telling you, he blinked at me. He was looking at me.
I buy it.
But yeah, so that is from a native Hoshin.
There we go. Perfect. And like, I just love it. Like, another piece of it that I was told was that after the dude, who we'll talk about, that's kind of the connection, after the owner died, that Stiffy Green, or the dog, I guess it wouldn't have been called Stiffy Green yet if he wasn't like taxidermied, but the dog would go lay on or outside the mausoleum, I think, at Highland Lawn Cemetery, and would, I guess, I don't know if it was like scare people away or not, but it would just hang out there because it missed its dad so much, and that they put either the taxidermy dog or a statue of the dog inside the mausoleum with emerald green eyes in the statue or the taxidermy version, and that you'd shine your flashlight into the mausoleum and that you'd see the eyes reflect back at you, and that was Stiffy Green guarding John Heinel or Robert Heinel. So this is where I get mixed up, but that it's either John or Robert. I mix them up, their first names, but Mr. Heinel.
I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Because it's not like we're live. We can like.
Yeah, we can edit stuff.
I keep forgetting that I can look things up.
It's all good.
I'm still new to the podcasting thing.
It's all good. No, totally cool.
John Heinel.
John Heinel the Elder. So Mr. Heinel married one of Gene's sisters, Marie. So she's that one on the end. Closest to me with the lighter hair, I guess. We're, by the way, sitting in the parlor of the house, and we're looking at a family portrait with Eugene Debs and his parents and his siblings. He had 4 sisters and a little brother. The sister on our right-hand side is Marie Debs Heinel. She married John, I don't know what year. He was a florist, by the way. So if Kate's sister-in-law was married to a florist, we can guess there were probably a lot of fresh flowers in the house, too. Yeah. But anyway, Stiffy Green is, I guess, a cousin. That makes the dog a cousin, I guess, sort of.
Sick.
Kind of fun.
Cool, yeah.
So there's the connection to here. I don't know anything Gene or Kate said about the dog, though, but it was a bulldog.
6 degrees of Debs.
Exactly, and Stiffy Green, too.
That's gonna be the title for the episode.
It's perfect, because it probably is real, honestly.
And so if you're watching on YouTube, I will put a photo. I just took a picture of the picture. If you're listening on Spotify, go fuck yourself. I can't help you. Go watch it on YouTube, I guess.
There you have it.
But
perfect.
Yeah, all right, cool. So yeah, and I probably botched some of that because I totally forgot the whole
No, that's folklore
part.
though. I like the folklore side of it and how the rumors and the legends adapt over time with their tellers, and that's what makes it real and meaningful to me. So that's why I wanted to hear it from you anyway. And yeah, they have a replica of the mausoleum in the museum too, and I don't know if they did it in the old house before, but now they also have a flashlight that you can shine into the exhibit and see Stiffy Green looking back at you too. And they have a portrait of John Heinel that wakes up in Harry Potter or something, and it talks to you and tells a story. They have
that's cool.
a really cool kind of portrait gallery with a few different talking portraits like that.
That's awesome.
So they've done some good work in there. I think you'll really enjoy checking it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Maybe that can be another. I'm just gonna do a Terre Haute historical series, I guess, for the pod, and see if I can talk to the Vigo County Historical Museum. Yeah.
And somebody I bet will talk to you too. I bet
yeah.
Susie would, but
I was joking around with some friends. I was like, we're starting with Eugene Debs House, and then I'm working up. I'm gonna do edibles with Brandon Sackbun.
Yes! Oh my gosh!
I don't even know if he gets down like that, but I was just I just thought it'd be funny to be like, all right, we're working up to just chilling with the mayor, brother.
Yeah, honestly.
So Brandon, balls in your court, big dog. Trying to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
did you see Brandon's retweet of us recently?
I did.
Can I tell the listeners about it?
Absolutely, yes. So for those who don't know, Terre Haute now has a new mayor for the first time in 16 years. We had the same mayor for literally half of my life. I'm 31, so it's been rare that I knew a time in Terre Haute without Mayor Duke Bennett, who, put in his own work and service, and it's very nice, though, to see some new blood kind of and fresh, younger. I feel like it's definitely going to be a good revitalization for what we need, even just to have a new face. But so what were you going to the Twitter. So you got to go follow @Debs Museum.
Oh yeah, follow @Debs Museum. It is the weirdest museum Twitter you'll ever find, except for the Merle. That stands for Museum of English Rural Life, and if you like weird museum Twitters, that's the other one you got to follow. They're kind of my muse, and if you've ever seen this picture of a very boxy looking, I think it was a sheep or a cow, and they had said look at this absolute unit, and it went viral, and now they became the weird museum, and now in the States people are not every museum has to be the Merle, blah 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 blah, but we're taking our cues from the Merle for sure. Anyway, we have a good time. We're trying to get to 9,653 followers because Debs was convict 9653 in 1920 for the campaign. And whoever gets the 9653rd follow is going on a plaque in the museum. It's just going to be a paper plaque, nothing fancy, but that's how I'm trying to get us over that last landmark for the year. Okay. Anyway,
you're close.
We're getting there. We're only a couple 150 away now, I think.
9,453.
Oh my gosh, we're exactly 200 away. That is so funny. All right.
Which means we're gonna get. Which means I need you guys to get it close, and then I'm gonna unfollow and refollow so I can get the plaque.
And my standard answer is I would prefer people don't unfollow and refollow, but I ain't keeping track of all that. Do whatever you want. I'm not gonna make a rule out of it. So, there you have it. Hopefully 200 listeners will make that possible for you.
I hope I have 200 listeners.
There you go.
For that, I'll give. If this gets up to 200 listeners, I'll buy you a plaque.
There we go. I love it.
I'll brush your teeth for you personally.
We'll put Marvin's room on the plaque in the house too. I love it.
I mean, there's already a Riley room.
Exactly.
One of my big inspirations, because I remember taking the tour, and I remember you had mentioned how James Whitcomb Riley, who's another very classic poet, a son of the area, and which is again wild that we have so much rich history, and it's led to 2023 of me and my friends telling these hot jokes.
Yeah, and Riley was a humorist too, just like you. So it all ties in.
He was.
And can I tell the guests or the listeners about the?
Absolutely.
So we have a guest room in the house, and then I want to take it back to Brandon's Twitter. But
sorry.
No, it's all good.
That's also the point of the podcast.
Been a lot of.
It's tangents upon tangents. So.
I love it. That's how I like to have conversations in even our tours. But The guest room, which is above our heads, above the parlor right here, was used so frequently by the Hoosier poet Riley that Gene and Kate called it the Riley room. So it's dedicated on the door as the James Whitcomb Riley bedroom. There's a few poems that are about or dedicated to Debs or mention him from Riley. I will spare your ears with those for right now. I'm not honestly a huge fan of Riley's poetry. I think his farmer dialect is fake news and kind of made up. It's kind of like Victorian MAGA, like look how great things used to be, you know?
Yeah, I never really thought about that before. It's also been a while since I've thought about James Whitcomb Riley.
That's fair
general.
too, honestly.
So,
but he does have two good museums. We are kind of like friends with the boyhood home over in Greenfield, Indiana, where like literally Little Orphan Annie, who was actually Little Orphan Allie, lived. Her name was Mary Alice Stevens, and it was a misprint to turn Allie into Annie from the printer. But anyway, so that's the Riley connection. Gene and James, or I guess Jim, were drinking buddies. The other side of 9th Street here, so like the Valley up to the train station, all used to be bars, taverns, hotels. And so they wouldn't even have to go downtown to go pub hopping or whatever. They could just the Valley, actually, there used to be a hotel there, and I don't know for sure if they would have drank there, but there was a rotation here basically. And Riley was a frequent guest of a debate and lecture club that Debs ran in Terre Haute. Brought in a few other speakers too that we could talk about. But I guess to take it back to Brandon's Twitter, I mentioned briefly that the house was a frat house for about 10 years, Theta Chi being here. So every now and then I tweet out one of our photos of Theta Chi and their era at the house. The house is covered in cedar shingle, like weatherboarding that's not original. It's so like 60s, I guess.
Yeah.
But and it doesn't necessarily go viral, but it gets some attention at least because it's so surprising to like, oh, a stately museum, also being like Party Central perhaps. But Brandon Sackbun retweeted, or actually quote tweeted the post about, or tweet I should say, about the house, and said that they wanted to, and here's Sarah. I think hi Sarah.
Hi Sarah.
Come on our podcast really quickly here. So you might know Levi.
Hi.
And this is Sarah.
Yeah,
Sarah.
I've definitely seen you on campus.
Yeah. Vigo County Green Party.
Yes.
And comes by every now and then. Good friend of the museum, wearing our campaign button too. We are recording for Levi's podcast right now.
Okay.
And it seems casual enough that I think we're cool if you're here.
Yeah, it's very casual. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah.
Anything we need to take care of before we keep going with our convo here?
No.
I can
Okay,
also
sounds
pause if
good.
we need to as well. And
Yeah, whatever
resume.
works.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your ornament is up, by the way.
Okay.
I want to tell the guests that we have a solidarity tree in the house right now.
Yep.
If you donate $15 or more before the end of the year, or really before 12/21, we'll put your name on a picket sign with your message of choice on the front. Sarah's is for the Vigo County Green Party and is a solidarity one, and we have like a bunch of solidarity ornaments, so we're gonna have to flip them around to find the right one. But it's one of these. There's a bunch that say solidarity, a bunch that say strike, a few others. But we're trying to find Sarah's really quickly. There's Jesse's. Oh, by the way, Jesse Brown, shout out. My friend from DSA and IWW
Very cool.
did one of our signs too. He is with Central Indiana DSA and ran for Indianapolis City County Council. Won. It was pretty much a blowout, I think, in the primary. I'm not totally sure, but totally won the general. And now DSA has, so Democratic Socialists of America, has a member on the City County Council. So we're bringing socialism back to its birthplace, but at least a certain sense of socialism. You found it. Very good, Sarah. Found it. Vigo County Green Party. And I'll mail that to you in January, or you can come pick it up at the end of next week too. And same for all the listeners if they're interested in supporting our work. And if this gets out, I would take a long time to get anything like this published. So I don't know if it's going to get out.
There'll be definitely links in the description and such if you're watching on YouTube. Again, if you're on Spotify, sorry, go to YouTube.
That's how it goes.
But yeah, and I'll be posting things on my Twitter at Marvincomedy, and we'll have some other stuff up. I'm looking for our new mayor's quote tweet, so I can include it. Also, while we're doing shout out to one of my friends and an ISU alum, former Theta Chi, Andy Stidham, who is one of my good buddies doing stand-up comedy. He's now in Louisville, and he used to live here in Terre Haute while he went to ISU and was part of Theta Chi. And
awesome.
so I was also looking for one of his, because I remember you sharing that, and I think he actually commented on it, saying that that's one of his favorite, like, pieces of trivia as a Theta Chi. So,
That's who
shout
that
out my
is.
good buddy
Okay.
Andy Stidham, yeah.
I'll give him a follow back if I didn't already. I try to be mutuals with as many people as I can, so that's awesome. But Brandon had said, like, now I have to go visit, not just to learn and be a resource, but I want to know who runs this Twitter account or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh my gosh, the new mayor is like, not just shouting out the museum, but the fact that our Twitter is so weird. But we have a good time out on there. Almost all of our ornaments that are sponsored here were sponsored by Twitter followers. A few others were in-person visitors, but I kind of tested this fundraiser just by launching it on Twitter and not putting it on any other sites or even on our website. And we got like 20 over the weekend, or maybe over 20 over a weekend. And then the rest came in over the course of the last week. And I'm going to keep doing these until the 21st. And at that point, I'm just going to have to say no more. But then we'll mail them out so you can hang them up next year on your own tree.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
It'll be a lot of fun, yeah. And we can do one for Marvin's room, like, if you want. Like, I won't make you pay for it because we're getting, like, promotion this way, too. So.
Yeah, that'd be sick. I love that.
A lot of fun. Very cool. Yeah. Cool. So what else should we talk about?
I'm trying to think if there's any tangents that we need to retange. We talked about James Wickham Riley. We talked about Stiffy Green. Also, shout out Terre Haute Brewing Company, who has a beer called Stiffy Green. And
if they're listening, by the way, let's get a Debs something, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a bug I've been trying to put in the ear of anybody who will listen. Like, if you want a local theme, like red ale or something like that.
Yeah.
Bell's had a Debs red ale that is not in production anymore, so maybe somebody else can. And Revolution Brewing in Chicago has the Eugene Porter in a Eugene Porter coffee thing. I don't know.
Okay.
And we have 3 cans of that have been tips over the years left in the kitchen.
That's cool.
But I've never actually tried it. I'm not much of a porter person. I like reds and stuff like that. But
all right. Well, shout out Terre Haute Brewing Company. If you if I would say if anybody's listening, but I literally know who exactly to message about this. So.
Yeah, like same. Honestly.
Shout out my good buddy Donovan Bedwell.
Oh, nice! You do know who.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying the opposite.
Oh,
even
no.
better. Wow.
Yeah, we've done shows with them and having friends that have worked there and just have gotten to know them. Really good people. Shout out to everybody at Terre Haute Brewing. They're a good bunch. And Honey's Bar and Grill, which is their restaurant that's inside their brewery. It's always, again, we have such a wealth of great local and also history, that building itself being very historical.
And a connection here, another connection yet again.
Go.
So first of all, Terre Haute, like, if you're local, you know, like, it's a huge brewing town way back in the day. And the Terre Haute Brewing Company was the brewery complex that has left a lot of those buildings in that part of the town. So like 9th and Poplar, basically. So the Brewing Company, Maugers, and a few of the other buildings around there were all part of that brewing complex. Now, Kate Debs, so Gene's wife, Kate Metzel Debs, her step family were the Bowers. The Bowers ran the drugstore where the Verve is now. The Verve was my spot in college. It's been a while now, but that was the Bauer drugstore. After Prohibition, Gene's gone, Kate lives a few years to see this, the Bowers reopened the Terre Haute Brewing Company and only employed union labor. So
very nice.
That's the in-laws and the step family who were doing that for at least a period. They didn't run Terre Haute Brewing Company for its whole existence, but for this period there. So and now it's back. So once again, let's get a Debs or a Bauer or something in there. It would be really fun.
We'll have to see what we can do to make work. I'll see what we can
Here we
cook
go.
up.
We're
See
like what being Mr. Burns over here.
Yeah, now
like,
we're scheming.
Exactly.
We're big, steady scheming.
I love it.
I mean, look, what's the point of having a platform if you're not going to use it for your own personal gain? Right?
Exactly. That's good. That's very good.
Thanks.
Love it.
Yeah. See, now I'm just going to be like hyper-fixating on this whole like Debs brew idea. Yeah. Because if anybody can make it work, it would be Terre Haute Brewing Company with everything between Stiffy Green and
with the family connection.
The family connection.
And they do Madame Brown. Oh, I can make a few connections to that kind of too. Yeah. There was like so another piece of context, like if you're not local, and maybe even if you are local, like Terre Haute had a pretty thriving red light district for a long time. And this is going to overlap with some of Gene's, like, being a public figure in Terre Haute, too.
Mm-hmm.
So before he was a socialist, Gene was a Democrat and was city clerk of this town twice, and then served a term in the lower house of the Indiana General Assembly. So he got into office 3 times, pretty easily elected. He was not like a red or radical yet. Like, he was liked by workers and their bosses, and was pretty easily elected when he ran. And as city clerk, Debs got a bit of a reputation because he refused to collect the massive fines that were given to these sex workers, because he thought it was wrong to punish these women for trying to make a living, while the men who bought their services saw zero consequence under the law. So he just refused to collect the fines, basically. It was kind of like under his discretion, I suppose, as city clerk. Some say that's the only really reform-minded thing he did as city clerk. Other than that, it was just like paperwork. I don't know. But then over in the State House, this is sort of tangentially related, but he supported failed amendments to the state constitution that would have struck any distinction of race or sex from the state constitution. Now, that failed, but he basically decided that the State House had been bought by the railroads when he couldn't even pass a bill to hold employers liable for deaths of workers, specifically railroads. So, like, I don't think he was all wrong in that sense, but that's when, like, you see him, like, trying it one way, can only get so far, so you're going to see him reevaluate and try a different route. So, anyway, kind of ties in.
Yeah, it really does. And for anyone that doesn't know, like Allison mentioned, we used to be straight up, like, called Sin City, USA. Like, we had a whole, like, mafia and just all kinds of gambling, and, like, you see the historical photos, bootlegging. Like, we used to go hard here in Terre Haute, honestly. I don't really know what happened. We're getting there. We're bringing it back.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm going to show up in just a recreation of the General Lee. We're going to start just going full Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh my gosh.
Going to start shine running.
Leave me out of that part. That's fun, though.
Just launching my car over the Wabash.
Oh my gosh.
You boys got to do another ride eat.
You need something besides Dixie on the horn, though.
Well,
like, maybe Solidarity Forever. John Brown's Body, really.
We'll have Eugene Debs version of the General Lee. Yeah, there you go.
Actually, now that we're thinking of it, but also, like, I've joked about, and, like, long term, we probably will need a vehicle, like, for the museum.
The Debsmobile.
The Debsmobile, like, the Little Red Special or something like that. And, like, we could get a union to sponsor, like, a big, beautiful wrap on it or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then maybe a custom horn that goes.
And you could use it in the Labor Day parade and everything.
Yeah,
like,
amazing.
Parade. It'd be great.
Oh my gosh. You know, one time we were at a Labor Day parade, and I gotta wonder now if it might have been you, but we got to the end of the route. And, you know, we have a pretty small walking unit in our parade, but Sarah always joins us, so I'm glad you're here. But we all wear our red shirts, we carry our banner, and we hand out candy. It's like we just show up and do the thing. But somebody at the end of the route one year pointed at us and said, that's why we're here. He's why we have Labor Day. And that's kind of true. Can I go on that for a second?
Absolutely.
Like,
please do.
Labor Day is like, it's like and I'm not saying this in like a celebratory way either, honestly. There were states and local Labor Days all over the country for decades before we had a federal Labor Day. But that was signed into law during the Pullman strike by Grover Cleveland, who had just sent in the army to break the strike, which means shooting and killing people. So, like, it was like not even a sorry we're shooting you on the railroad tracks, but have a day off and have a picnic, not a protest. Have a parade, but not a strike. And forget about May 1st, when the rest of the world has May Day or International Workers' Day to commemorate events in Chicago. Like, and the Pullman strike also emanated out of Chicago. So it's wild to me that both Labor Day and May Day have Chicago roots. And then Debs was pretty, depends on the year. He wrote about Labor Day every year, articles and stuff like that. And some years he's like, let's like celebrate how far we've come, how far we still have to go, blah, blah, blah. And other years he's like, there's going to be a Terre Haute Labor Day parade, but nobody walking in that parade actually understands their class interests, and none of them are willing to vote for socialists. And like, we need to be able to take this fight beyond our individual workplaces and into our industries and into our economy as a whole. So I don't know. I kind of echo some of that for Debs now.
Yeah.
And I lean toward May Day as my personal favorite. I did a poll for this on Twitter a few months ago. Do you like Labor Day or May Day better? And like May Day was far and beyond the favor for our audience, at least. Yeah.
I would not expect that.
Yeah, that's just our niche, I guess, like
Yeah.
the interesting following that we happen to have. So yeah. What else?
Gosh, let's just look through some of these tweets.
Okay. Oh gosh, back to the tweets.
Back to the tweets.
Oh, gosh.
Like, this is just such a. It's just such a good time.
It's so
Honestly,
fun, and
it
honestly,
is.
a lot of it is shit posting. Like, I know some museums will have like special social media planning or
Yeah.
strategies, and I tweet from my iPhone 6s. Like,
Nice.
no Hootsuite or TweetDeck or whatever people use. It's just kind of off the cuff, and it probably could be a little more organized and planned than that. But I also feel like people like how organic it is too, and that it's not just, I don't know, somebody in an office tweeting something that was approved by a committee or something like that.
Yeah.
That you can tell it's just like a person tweeting whatever they're working on that day. I hope anyway. And like, no, I tried for a long time to keep it more buttoned up, and like there would still be jokes and memes, but
Yeah.
more like, oh, come to our reading group, and like, yes, come to our reading group, but like, nobody really seems to care if I'm just tweeting out pictures of collection items, or maybe sometimes quotes do pretty well too.
Yeah.
But if I'm like trying to make Debs relevant, or talk about the main character of the day and how that relates to something here, or I don't know, put some of our haters on blast too.
Yeah.
Like, people really seem, I mean, what I'm saying is it gets the better engagement than like the normal boilerplate stuff seems to. So, and like, I follow a lot of less exciting museum accounts, and like, I want to see the content too, but it's not what it doesn't keep it on the For You page, I guess. Like the algo. You kind of have to hack that a little bit and put out stuff that people will like, so that then they do see, come to our reading group or come to our open house or support with a fundraiser. Like, we wouldn't have got all those ornaments sponsored if we hadn't been like tweeting the funny stuff. And when I abuse that royal we too. I have a hard time just saying I or me, but
well, because it's because of the solidarity.
yeah, right. That's what it's all
Bring it back
about.
around,
Yeah, exactly. It's all collective effort, and it is a we, because everybody who interacts, likes, retweets, quotes, if it's nice quotes, they're helping spread the message too, spread the message too, and get our content in front of their friends' faces too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it seems to be working.
Well, especially since we're in an age where like the biggest shit posting account of the last couple of years has been Wendy's.
Right.
So like you almost kind of have it's the meta. Like you almost kind of have to.
It was like Wendy's.
Do that a little in order to get that engagement, because that's what people were looking for.
Yeah, it's like Wendy's and Denny's, I think. Denny's did it on Tumblr first.
Yeah.
And it was like self-aware. And I remember Tumblr, LOL, RIP. But and Denny's and then Wendy's on Twitter. And like, for some social media people, there's like some people hate it because like now all brands have to act like people instead. And like how sometimes it's very annoying and cringy, but like, we're not just any brand either. Like, we're a little people powered museum, and I don't want people to feel alienated by sterile like boilerplate posting, I guess. So it seems to be working. Most people don't seem to hate it that much, and I guess those who do just scroll right past, and it seems to work.
It moving. Well, speaking of keeping it moving, we are up to 48 minutes.
How did that happen?
I have no idea,
my gosh.
but hey, that's the whole point of the show, is to get it very nice, like organic, and just keep it rolling. So I think that might be a good place to start wrapping it up. So is there anything else that, just as a final thought, that you want to either plug with the museum, or anything that you just want people to take away from the experience?
Yeah, 100%. So first of all, come take a tour. And if you can't come to Terre Haute, or if stairs are not good, because like, we are not ADA compliant right now. We don't have a ramp to the first floor. We're working on that for our restoration project too. Maybe an elevator someday for the upper floors as well. But in the meantime, I do free Zoom tours as well for any like big or small groups, or just individuals, families, classes, or your union local or your colleagues or whatever. Take a tour here or online. we are a free museum, but that means that we need regular people to support us too. And we have a sustaining monthly option online too, so you can send us your 10, 15, 20 bucks every month if you want, or you can make a one-time donation. This is all at donate.debsfoundation.org. We also have an awesome museum gift shop. Everything that we order made is is union made and printed. So we have posters, books, buttons, magnets, t-shirts, all kinds of fun swag in the gift shop, and I process all those orders and send them out personally. So Sarah and I are both doing our campaign button reproductions. We have the Convict 9653 pin. We have a red flag pin that's reproduced from one that Debs wore. So buy our merch, visit the house, make donations. It really does help keep the lights on and the bills paid. We're not the kind of museum that gets big corporate donations. We rely on regular people and unions to keep the doors open. And also come to our other events and programs. This is not just a place to take a tour, but also a place to hear music or do some reading. We are going to have, I think, 2 film series in the new year. So I think February and March we're doing Black history and women's history through film. And they're all like protest and like radical history too. So we're gonna have, I think, 8 movies in the house in a few weeks, and those we just set up here in the parlor with like a screen. It's very low key, and we have popcorn and a good time. We have annual events, big and small, all year long. We have a big reading in June that Sarah always reads for too, where we read something from Debs to keep his words alive. And then in the fall, we do a big annual award program. We recognize people and groups working in the Debs legacy. And it's kind of, I feel like, a rite of passage to get to go to a Debs dinner in Terre Haute. So get a table or whatever. Like, we have a great time. We sing. We always have live music or a DJ. And it's a very rousing time to have 200 Debs heads in one room in Terre Haute. Doesn't happen every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Few ways that folks can support our work and get involved here. And also just, like, come hang out, because this is, like, sort of a third space that I hope people can use to not have to spend money, but also just be able to enjoy a really wonderful resource.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much for allowing me to come and do the Marvin's room from Gene's room.
Very
from
cool.
The parlor.
Marvin's parlor. Let's
Marvin's
call it
parlor,
that.
yeah.
I love it. And thank you, Levi. This has been a blast. Do you use your real name on the podcast?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Levi, for like inviting us to do this. It's been so much fun, and to have Sarah sit in with us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah,
this has
go
been
follow
so much fun.
at Debs Museum on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Marvincomedy, and let's just keep all of those just follows and donations going, because this is a great way to preserve not only local history but also just American history in general. So I just want to say thank you once again, Allison, and I never know how to end these, so we're just gonna
Solidarity forever.